A new report from Punchbowl News says that Amazon is looking to avoid the blame for raising prices as a result of President Trump's new tariff. The economy and trade taking center stage. Of course, it's those tariffs and the vast changes that President Trump is making. We're always subject to negotiate something that's fair, but we've talked to most of the countries, and pretty much they've had their way for many, many decades. As you know, and it was time that we just wanted fairness. Wow, millions of Americans are waiting for Prime Day to see what's hot. But it's strange, there are no deals at all. No advertisements, no countdown timers, no shocking deals every hour, just silence. No one said it outright, but everyone felt that something was off. Amazon, a name once regarded as a symbol of American technological pride, is quietly planning to do something few dare to imagine. Leaving the United States, not just relocating a branch, but moving the entire global headquarters from Seattle to another country. The reason is not far to seek, a trade war originating from the very place where Amazon was born. And while America is reeling from prices, job losses, and endless debates, Canada steps up, seizing the golden opportunity that we have let slip away. The question is not just why Prime Day disappeared, but rather what has Amazon really seen that Americans have not? Behind that decision is a bigger story about trade, identity, and America's position in a world that is changing every day. And we will explore this together in today's video. A small note: the content in this video is created with the purpose of sharing social perspectives, provoking reflection, and connecting the community. We do not represent any organization, individual, or brand mentioned in the video. Let's get started. Every year, around mid-July, millions of Americans eagerly await Prime Day, Amazon's biggest shopping event of the year. Many families not only see this as an opportunity to hunt for discounted items, but also as a modern tradition, akin to a summer version of Black Friday. 4K TVs, robot vacuum cleaners, and even survival rations have all once been in the shopping cart at dream prices. However, this year, Prime Day suddenly disappeared. Drip advertising, sparse banners, just silence, and then a leaked message appeared. Amazon plans to cancel Prime Day 2025. What happened in the end? The answer does not lie in the warehouse, but perhaps it lies in the policy. Specifically, new tariffs of up to 145% have been imposed on imported goods from China, Europe, and Canada, which supply a large portion of Amazon's low-cost products. Previously, Amazon had taken advantage of a loophole in the law known as demis. Accordingly, low-value goods can be imported into the U.S. without being taxed. Thanks to that, a pair of headphones priced at $2 or a phone case at $5 could reach American consumers at a low cost. But when that law was repealed and the new tax was applied, each small item on Amazon started to skyrocket in price like never before. A leaked internal report stated that if Prime Day continues, Amazon will have to cover a loss of over $600 million USD in just 2 days. That is no longer feasible. And so instead of having an expensive and disappointing Prime Day, Amazon chose to withdraw quietly. But what breaks many people's hearts is not just losing a sales period, but it's the feeling if even Amazon, the symbol of modern America, can no longer hold on. Then what is certain? Amazon, a company that was once the pride of American technology and built a mini-city within Seattle, is now facing the risk of packing everything up and leaving. And no, this is not about opening more international branches, but rather finding a new, safer, and freer haven. Within the company, a plan called Project Silver Compass, a strategic migration has been quietly implemented over several months. And when everything was settled, it seemed they just needed to add a brief announcement. We will restructure to optimize the global operating environment. Canada, Singapore, Ireland, UAE, all have been carefully considered. But Canada stands out the most due to its stable trade policies, technology-friendly infrastructure, and close-knit culture. With a nod, Amazon is not just relocating its headquarters. They might be shifting their trust away from the system that once helped them grow. And what haunts people is not Amazon leaving, but rather the way they left in silence. No press conference, no apologies, no goodbyes. Seattle, once known as the capital of Amazon, in the future may only have vacant offices, empty cafes, and for sale signs if a company was built in America, grew thanks to Americans, but leaves when it faces difficulties. Is it still an American company? Or is it simply a global corporation? Choosing the most advantageous location when America is entangled with tariffs and supply chain disruptions. Canada chooses to remain silent and prepare. No loud proclamations, no pressure. They simply did one thing, welcomed what America was losing. In the list of 4 countries considered by Amazon for relocating its global headquarters, Canada is the least conspicuous choice. Yet the most strategic: similar culture, stable tax policies, advanced technological infrastructure, and especially geographical proximity, allowing Amazon to maintain a connection with the U.S. market without facing an unfavorable tax system. A report reveals Canada has proposed a comprehensive incentive package, including a 10-year tax incentive, expedited residency support for thousands of engineers and managers from the U.S., and investment in data infrastructure alongside large-scale order processing centers. And Amazon is not the only one looking at Canada. Many other retail giants like Apple, Tesla, and even Walmart are also conducting similar surveys, with one common point. They all want to escape the whirlpool of tariff politics that is paralyzing the business environment in the U.S. And so, while the U.S. is losing jobs and seeing property prices drop in Seattle, Canada is expanding its new tech hubs, hiring thousands of local workers, and upgrading logistics infrastructure to welcome Amazon. Each American engineer moving to work in Vancouver or Toronto not only brings experience, but also carries the belief in a more stable system. And perhaps the most bitter thing is this: Amazon did not choose to leave the West, did not choose to go far. They simply stepped over to the neighbor's house. And Canada is embracing the future that America has let slip away. Remember when Amazon was still headquartered in Seattle? The whole city lived to its rhythm. From the morning coffee shops opening early for software engineers to the convenience stores next to office buildings, everything followed a rhythm. Amazon is growing. If the information about Amazon withdrawing from the U.S. is confirmed, tens of thousands of workers could find themselves in a state of limbo. No alarm bells, no time to prepare. There was only an email notification: you can apply to work at the new headquarters in Canada or the UAE. Not everyone is ready to leave their homeland, family, and children's school to start anew in a foreign country. And not everyone is in a position to move along. According to data from the Seattle government, the home sales rate in the South Lake Union area, where a large number of Amazon employees are concentrated, has increased by 38%. The elementary schools in the area have seen a decrease of over 200 enrollments. A local chain of coffee shops had to close 5 out of 7 branches because there were no longer people sitting and working all day as before. A veteran Amazon employee who had been with the company for 15 years shared in a quiet interview, "We stayed up all night to run the server. We used to be proud to be a part of Amazon, but when the company decided to leave, no one asked if we could go along." The saddest thing is not just losing the job, but it is also the feeling of being abandoned by the very place where one had dedicated their youth. And that question, perhaps many people are still silently asking, is love for the job enough to keep you at a company if that company no longer loves you? You may not be interested in trade negotiations. You may have never read a full economic news report. But when you open the Amazon app, intending to buy a pair of headphones as usual, and then see that the price has gone up from $9 to $34, you sense that something is wrong. And it's not just one item. A box of tissues that used to be bought in bulk for $1 is now $7. A set of iPhone charging cables that used to cost $8 is now nearly $4. Even small items like socks, hangers, or phone cases have quietly increased in price. No announcement, no explanation, only confusion. 2 months ago, Amazon quietly launched a controversial experiment, displaying the tariff rate directly on each product. This means that when you click on an item, you will see a small note: 4.75 of the total price of this product is an import tax due to current trade policies. And then the result was that nearly 63% of consumers in an internal Amazon survey felt disappointed or angry. Not with the company, but with the system that was forcing them to pay for things that were previously normal. This is the consequence of the largest tariff war since the 1930s, initiated with the goal of protecting domestic production and rebalancing trade. It sounds reasonable until it makes American consumers the first to bear the brunt. A report from the Brookings Institution states, in the first 6 months of the tariff implementation, the prices of imported consumer goods increased by an average of 21%. Electronic items, which account for nearly 35% of Amazon's total transactions, were the hardest hit, with prices increasing by up to 42%. And this is not just the story of those who enjoy shopping online. For the elderly living on fixed incomes, such as pensions or Social Security, this change directly impacts their quality of life. A viewer left a comment after our previous video about Amazon's price increase. I used to buy that bottle of vitamins every month. Now it's 1.5 times more expensive. And I have to cut out one type. I don't understand why everything is getting so expensive so quickly, but I know what it feels like to be left behind, and perhaps that is what makes many people feel the most disappointed. No one explains clearly. No one takes responsibility. Only ordinary people. Those who shop every day are paying the price for a war they did not create, do not fully understand, and cannot control. Finally, the question is no longer who is winning in this trade war, but rather, is anyone really protecting the American people? A cruel paradox in Seattle. For sale, signs are densely planted in front of houses that once belonged to Amazon employees. In Toronto, the "We're hiring" sign hangs on the door of Amazon's new office, right in the heart of the tech district that is expanding week by week. The contrast couldn't be clearer. While engineers, managers, and logistics experts in the U.S. receive restructuring emails and are asked to apply for international relocation in Canada, new positions are being filled quickly without widespread announcements. They were already prepared. Vancouver, a city once primarily known for tourism, is now becoming an emerging technology hub, thanks to Amazon choosing to establish part of its operations center here. The Canadian government cannot hide its excitement. They even plan to hold a public conference to welcome Amazon, introducing the Special Tech Zone, a new technology privilege area with preferential tax policies, high-end digital infrastructure, and expedited settlement support for international employees. A statistic from the Canadian Employment Department shows that in the second quarter of 2025 alone, the country's technology sector hired more than 8,400 new positions, an increase of 27% compared to the same period last year. Most of these positions are related to supply chain, data, and e-commerce, aligning with the areas Amazon is shifting towards. And what makes many Americans is that this success came not because Canada was stronger, but because they were more patient. They didn't need to win the trade war. They just need to wait for America to push those opportunities beyond its borders. A Canadian Amazon employee who was promoted during the restructuring shared on LinkedIn, "I've always dreamed of working at Amazon's headquarters. I never expected that dream to come true when the headquarters moved to where I live. Without fanfare, without noise, Canada has become the chosen one simply by maintaining stability, friendliness, and readiness. And the Americans, perhaps they don't lose at the negotiating table. They lost the trust of the companies that once called America home. And the saddest thing is this: when the leadership position is handed over, you will not hear the alarm sound, only the sound of footsteps leaving in silence. Taxes in modern politics merces about not just a tool for revenue collection, but also a part of power, a stick and carrot used to punish or encourage depending on the government's goals. When the new administration imposed mass tariffs at the beginning of 2025, the goals were clear: to protect domestic production, reduce dependence on China, and bring American companies back home. Many people supported it. Many people believe that it is the necessary push to make America strong again. But every push comes with a backlash, according to the Tax Policy Institute. Just 9 months after the new tariffs, the average cost in the U.S. retail supply chain increased by 23%. While the net profit of technology companies decreased by an average of 11%. Not because they are not skilled, but because the business environment has become too unpredictable, and Amazon was probably the quickest to react when the de minimis law was abolished. Amazon lost its core competitive advantage. Competitors from Europe and Asia who have been selling from abroad now have an advantage. They're not forced to operate in an unstable environment. Amazon once endured. They tried raising prices, try explaining to the customers, even try to publicly disclose the portion of costs inflated due to taxes. But when all efforts led to billions of dollars in losses, they chose the final solution to leave. And not just them, Apple has applied for a tax exemption for Chinese components, warning that if not approved, they will reconsider their global manufacturing structure. Tesla, on the other hand, is quietly ramping up investments in Indonesia, where they don't have to account for policies that change every month. The trade war was expected to bring companies back, but the reality is proving otherwise. No one wants to invest in a place where policies change faster than the weather. And perhaps what people regret the most is not losing a Prime Day or losing tens of thousands of jobs, but rather losing something even more precious: trust in a system that can be predictable, stable, and respects market principles. Business freedom cannot thrive in an unstable system. And sometimes the backlash doesn't come from the opponent, but from those who were once allies. If you asked any American in 2005 which country Amazon belonged to, you would get a definite answer. Of course, it's American. Headquartered in Seattle, the CEO is American, listed on the American Stock Exchange. And most importantly, the majority of users and employees are in the United States. But 2 decades later, everything has changed. Amazon today is no longer a company that relies on Americans. It is a global ecosystem where revenue comes from hundreds of countries. Products come from millions of cross-border suppliers, and databases are located in the most cost-effective and secure places. The plan to withdraw from the U.S. might also be a logical procedural choice, like a ship changing course to avoid turbulent waters. An executive once said in a closed meeting, "We don't need to put our hearts anywhere. We just need to place the data center in the right location." That is perhaps also the common nature of post-national corporations. They no longer belong to a specific country. They belong to places with competitive advantages, where policies are sound, where they can develop without being interrupted by wars unrelated to delivery. And Amazon is no exception. Apple, despite seeming loyal to California, still has 98% of its supply chain outside the United States. Meta also plans to accelerate investment in India. Amazon now seems to only need users, need speed, and need the freedom to operate. For many Americans, this brings a sense of loss because we used to believe that companies like Amazon were part of the American story. Now it seems like they are writing their own story without needing us as loyal readers anymore. So the big question is, if the largest companies are no longer tied to their birthplace, can we still control our own future? When the United States wields the tariff stick and tightens trade routes, Canada chooses to build more bridges. No grand statements, no strategic moves or patriotic calls were used. Canada simply does one thing. It becomes the most breathable place for those who want to continue working, building, and innovating. Meanwhile, the U.S., once a beacon of global business, is struggling with internal and external instability. Tax laws changing with each administration. Federal regulations overlap with state laws, the politicization of every economic decision. Canada doesn't need to defeat the U.S. They just need to avoid messing things up themselves. And the noteworthy thing is, Canada doesn't chase slogans. They don't need slogans like "Make Canada Great Again." Instead, they invest in digital education, selective immigration policies, and green infrastructure. And now they are being rewarded. According to The Economist report, in June 2025, Canada has the highest rate of retaining technology investors in the G7, while the U.S. has fallen to the 4th position behind even Germany. What does this mean? Canada's soft power does not lie in declarations, but in the ability to make others choose it, not because they are forced to, but because they want to. While the U.S. is preoccupied with the trade war, Canada is busy building bridges. And perhaps that is something that the leading countries should stop and consider. Not everyone who walks slowly loses. There are those who choose to take light steps, but in the right direction. When you see the Amazon logo on a truck, what do you think? For many Americans, it used to be a symbol of progress, convenience, and above all, a testament to the American dream. A company that started in a garage and rose to become a global empire. But after Amazon announced the withdrawal of its entire global headquarters from the United States, the old questions suddenly became difficult to answer. If a company is born in America, developed by American hands, but leaves America when faced with obstacles, is it still an American company? The question is not just symbolic.